Hello and welcome to the workshop on defensive security or surveillance self-defense. This is a pre-recorded workshop, so I will be available in the chat room to answer your questions as they arise in the video. Give me a doppelganger effect of being able to speak and present the workshop and also answer your questions at the same time. The workshop will last an hour. There is more content in the slides than I can talk about in an hour. So sorry that some of the slides I'll have to gloss over very quickly, but I strongly recommend that you download the slides and have a proper read or look at them after the workshop, especially some of the further resources that are available. Here is a workshop summary, the first slide. There's First, I'll cover some guiding principles to good privacy practices. Part 2, the largest section of the workshop, will be about tools available to you, such as Tor, VPN, Tails. And Part 3 will have a very brief look at smartphone security. It is a massive topic, so yeah, we'll have to look at it very briefly. Part 4, credits, further resources and feedback, please. Okay, so we will begin with guiding principles to good privacy practices. A good place to start with this, because the workshop is tailored to those who are subject to surveillance by our inglorious state surveillance. We need to realistically look at threat modelling because of the state apparatus for surveillance. The amount of tax money or resources put into it is very large. There's a lot of organisations involved with. Basically, there's an arms race between states at the moment where they are almost competing to develop the technology and the infrastructure to surveil their own citizens. This is to develop the technology, the malware, to surveil their own citizens, and also, the UK is known for actually exporting a malicious software to other states as well. So so there are large organisations and a lot of money involved with surveilling their own, in the UK, for example, and in other countries as well, obviously, surveilling their own citizens. So you need to look realistically at basically this balance between usability and security, and where on that paradigm can we assert ourselves. For example, if you have a bicycle, you lock it up with a D-lock, for example. If you want to be really secure, you lock it up with 50 D-locks. No one's going to steal that, but then it makes it very difficult for you to, for example, use the bike because you have to carry 50 keys, you have to unlock 50 locks, you have to carry those locks with you maybe. So you understand that, so that's far on the end of the security paradigm, end of the spectrum, and the usability is very, very limited or encumbered. But on the other end of the spectrum, no lock, great, easy, grab your bike and go, but it could be stolen, such as is your data. Our data is frequently stolen unconsensually by state actors. So 5 questions which the EFF, Electronic Freedom Foundation, very helpfully pose to help us realistically find a balance on that paradigm is: what do you want to protect? So what data is it that you want to protect? Who do you want to protect it from? In this instance, perhaps it's easier to understand, or maybe not actually. Is it police, or is it which is perhaps easier to protect from, unless you're arrested perhaps, but there are still preventative things you can do, like not leave certain data on your phone, or is it from the GCHQ, NSA, and how likely is it that you need to protect it? How bad are the consequences if you fail? Is it jail time for you, for other people? Is it just that an action might be prevented, might be interfered with, stopped from happening if you fail? perhaps the consequences are even less. And how much trouble are you willing to go through in order to try to prevent those things? Maybe that, going back to my metaphor, how many D-locks are you willing to put on your bike? So yeah, these questions are fleshed out, are given a lot more explanation in this, in the URL at the bottom of the slide. I strongly encourage you have a look at that, because it's very easy to feel overwhelmed by perhaps that's sort of a reason why you're here, actually, to feel empowered, to understand how better we can defend against the surveillance state. So yeah, there's have a look at that source. Like Electronic Freedom Foundation are really good in terms of helping provide lots of really helpful information. The next paradigm or ideology to look at is FOSS versus proprietary, and FOSS standing for free and open source software. Proprietary software, on the other hand, is software which is owned, and it's you're not allowed to copy, redistribute, change that software. Free and open source software, on the other hand, is software which you can change, you can modify, is free in the sense of not in the sense of someone giving you something for free on the street, although lots of free and open source software is free in the sense of liberation or liberatory, in the sense that you're free to change, to modify it, to adapt it to your own, which many people do. The open source aspect of it is where a lot of the trust comes from, in the sense that free and open source software, the source code is published somewhere. So that's the code, the way in which it works is published online. So there's an element of transparency to that, which perhaps our government should have as well, in the sense that there should be transparency with the processes which are used, which control our data or our lives. I think more and more software and hardware and technology is defining our lives. So I believe that the software which has so much control over our life, there should be transparency of it, just as I believe there should be transparency in government processes which also govern our lives. So an explanation, or more explanation of this, overly simplistically stated, free and open source software is good and proprietary software is bad. Very unhelpfully, another metaphor is referring to George Orwell's Animal Farm: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. But that doesn't help you understand the software at all. But yeah, with free and open source software, people are free to take it, to use it, to adapt it, but not to sell it. It's created and maintained by communities most of the times, and it's potentially more trustworthy. Especially with encryption, I would never trust closed-sourced encryption. It allows people to look at the code, as I explained, to see whether there are any backdoors. If it's a small project, however, maybe no one ends up looking at that source code to see how it works, and security vulnerabilities may remain unpatched. So yeah, have a look. Often code is for the projects are hosted on GitHub or GitLab. Have a look at whether there have been some recent updates to the code. It is still actively maintained. If it's a large project, if it's a small project, if a large project, it's more likely that people are going to have a look at it. Take, for example, Signal Messenger, massive project. Lots of people, regularly look at the source code, so it's likely that someone has peer reviewed the code, basically. Proprietary, on the other hand, is owned by a person or a company. It has restrictions. It's often corporate service or project which you must pay for. It's potentially less trustworthy, as I said, especially with the encryption. It's kind of like they're saying, we're not going to let you see what we put under the bonnet. You just have to trust us. And if you want to repair it or change it, you're not allowed to. You don't really own it, and which is especially concerning if you pay for a device. That device has surveillance capabilities over your personal private life. but you're not really allowed to know what that software is doing, or somebody who you trust isn't allowed to see what that software is doing. Under the bonnet, so to speak. Another important concept to understand is that of metadata. Metadata is, Bruce Schneier explains it as a metadata as context rather than being the content. So in a message you send a text message to your mate. The text message is, "Hey, how's it going?" That's the message content. Now the metadata is is your phone number, your friend's phone number, when you sent the message, perhaps how long the message is, perhaps even where you were when you sent that text message. Whilst this might seem pretty innocent, perhaps doesn't seem like a breach of privacy, this is metadata is something that we all really need to care about more, which is difficult when it's difficult to understand what it is and what the implications of it are. But from a Alphabet Boys, NSA, GCHQ surveillance state point of view, when you're trying to surveil an entire population rather than an individual, the metadata is more meaningful, important, useful. We can find out, or they can find out more information from metadata, but often enough information from metadata about our personal lives, and about our contacts, about our friend network maps, what we're doing, who we're involved with, what organizations, even de-anonymizing us. Perhaps our contacts can tell us perhaps who owns a phone based upon who they contact. Allegedly, the NSA could tell, I think it was 95% of its, I could de-anonymize or identify 95% of the US population based on, I believe, 4 location points. So that would be where they were, at what time, at 4 different points. Then based on running algorithms on that data, they could de-anonymize or find out who that person is. So that's metadata. There are many different types of metadata. I'm afraid that it's outside of the scope of this workshop to go into too much detail about that, but we'll have a look at removing metadata from photos later on. But yeah, please, I recommend. I put the book title there, so have a look at that book. Dip in and out. It's a bit overwhelming to perhaps read the whole thing, but there's a lot of very helpful information, a good explanation of how metadata is used, and the importance of it. So how can I remove metadata from photos? Tails, a secure anonymous operating system, which we'll cover in more detail later, provides the option to just simply right-click on a photo and select remove metadata. That's great. Linux command line, if you're comfortable with that, you can run a program called mat2, and then the name of the file name that removes metadata. I'll just skip forward to Android. Has an app in F-Droid, which I'll explain later, called Scrambled Exif. On the right hand side you can see a screenshot from the Scrambled Exif app, where you simply tap share and then you tap on the Scrambled Exif icon, and then it brings up another share dialog, and then you select the app that you want to share it with. Be aware that when you've shared the photo with Signal Messenger, the photo that you sent, the metadata is removed, but the photo itself does remain on with metadata on your phone. Do be aware that after, even if you use MAT2, the original photo will remain, and you might need to, if the metadata is sensitive, then you might need to actually securely delete the original photo, or the secure, or erase the empty disk space, which I will come to now, hopefully. How to delete sensitive files. So to start an explanation of this, when you hit delete on your laptop, on your phone, or whatever, first is the issue of, does it just go to the recycle bin? But if you for example, on Linux, if you can shift delete and permanently delete a file, all your computer is doing is, metaphorically speaking, writing on a post-it note, this file is deleted, sticking it on that box, let's call it a box, this file that you've got. And that box doesn't disappear, doesn't go away until your computer or device is looking for some disk space to perhaps take a video, and then looks for some disk space and sees all of these boxes with post-it notes on saying this box is deleted. Then it will bulldoze over or use that space available and then write over that disk space, and that file will actually be that data is no longer stored, so to speak. There are methods of data extraction, forensics, where they can still be extracted, but here are some explanations as to how to securely delete your files. So on Tails, again, it's very easily, you right click and you click on wipe. However, this is only applicable to hard drives, which is very easy. Solid state drives or USB sticks, same. It can't really. This wipe function isn't really reliable. You need to delete the file and then erase any and all free disk space that's available. So, I mean, ideally, just use an encrypted disk. That makes deletion look much easier. There are some graphical by GUI, graphical user interface. There are some easy ways to delete things on Tails. If you go into the disks and you can erase a disk, write it over with zeros. There's also BleachBit, which is a program available on Linux. I'm not sure what other platforms it's available for, but that has the option to wipe empty disk space. Command line. There's also a program called sfill, which is very helpful. It provides the option to write zeros or write random data, which is better, but a bit slower, and also write it numerous times, which will help counter data forensics technologies where data can perhaps even be recovered after it's been written over once or more. So have a look at sfill if you're okay with the command line. There are also other options. DD, shred, other options available. But sorry, I can't go into too much detail on that, I'm afraid. So moving on to passwords, very, very important is basically you just use a password manager. It's a little bit difficult, but it's easier than remembering loads of passwords. You just need to remember one strong password to encrypt the password manager database itself. There are some other free and open source password managers available. Have a look at privacy tools, or have a search for other options, but KeePassXC is in Tails itself. There's also, I've forgotten, it's KeePassX something else for Android, but they also have a password manager equivalent app in Android, available in F-Droid. For making passwords yourself, the password managers, they do also very helpfully, it automatically, you can click a little dice icon and it can automatically create, for example, a 32 alphanumeric password, even with some punctuation in it, made from random string, and it will create this automatically for you. So you can have these passwords uniquely for every single website or login which you use, and you can also, there's an option to, I think it's Control V, and then it automatically fills in your username and password, pastes that into the into a browser, for example, if that's the window behind the password manager at the time. But making passwords themselves, just don't use dictionary words. Rule number 1. Sentence lyric acronyms are quite helpful. So choose your favorite song, a line from that song, the first letter from every word, make an acronym from that lyric. So every time you think, what what's my password, that song will come to mind, and you'll hopefully remember your password. Pick a random line in a book is also another helpful thing. Dice and word list combination, yeah, I mean, not so great, to be honest. Dice only. I mean, hopefully you're using a 10-sided dice, and word lists, I mean, it's dictionary words, isn't it? So yeah, not ideal. But two-factor authentication is great. Please do use it as much as you can. Ideally, I mean, actually in Android there's I think it's called OTP, an app called OTP, and that as two-factor authentication, they're very good for providing one-time passwords. That's what OTP stands for. In terms of logins for example, GitHub, or I think Amazon might even you can use that. Okay, moving on. So part 2 is about tools. This is the larger section of the workshop, and first of all we can talk about Tor. I'd like to talk about Tor. What is it? Again, it's free and open source software on an open network. It mitigates against surveillance, censorship, tracking. As with all of these technologies, it's about mitigation. I'm afraid there's no such thing as perfect security. We have to make that balance on the security versus usability paradigm. But Tor browser, as we're going to into a bit, is a very a very reliable source of surveillance counteraction. We don't need to talk about that too much. Here's Tor browser, it's just based on Firefox. Basically, it's a fork. It's an adaptation of Firefox with a few extra features. And this is the front end, so to speak, and the background. There you'll have a Tor daemon running in the background, which is just a bit of software which connects to the Tor network itself. Some of the benefits of using Tor browser is it obscures your real IP address, which can be related to your location. Prevents network observation, so countering surveillance. Prevents location determination linked to your IP address. So if your IP address is given away, then your location can be determined. Blocks fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is quite a complicated area, actually, but basically how you are identified based upon many different things of your online behavior. One thing would be how your browser is configured, what your browser is. There are many aspects to that. I can provide a link actually to more explanation of fingerprinting later on. Prevents cross-site correlation, so that's if there are multiple websites. So you're accessing let's say Google on your phone and Google on your PC or laptop. Perhaps Google can usually find out that you are the same user, but if you use perhaps Tor on your laptop, then Google will find it difficult to know that you're the same user. Isolates cookies and scripts. Cookies are small packets, very briefly, small packets of information which are put on your computer for a multitude of reasons, but they are used for to track your online behavior. And scripts are in effect JavaScript which runs in your browser, and it's not open source scripts which are running on your computer, which are the scripts are provided by the website. So this is your browser is executing non-open source scripts. I guess it's a kind of nightmare in terms of security, but you can prevent these scripts being executed on your browser. This also prevents certain functions of the website, but you can calibrate it to find a balance for yourself and your internet use. Writes nothing to disk. Yes, it doesn't save anything unless you explicitly ask it to, and the same with browser history. It doesn't save your browser history, so that if your computer is taken or surveilled, or somebody has access to your browser history later on, they'll look and they won't see. As soon as you close your browser, I believe, that browser history is erased. Next is how does Tor actually work? So this is a very helpful diagram of somebody's computer, or perhaps you're on your computer browsing the internet, looking at some website, looks like YouTube there, and over, however, the Tor network, so providing some layer of anonymity, illustrated by a cloud. And in the Tor network, the Tor network is made up of loads of people's computers, loads of servers, or we say, but they're people's computers essentially. When you connect to a website, you essentially go through 3 of the Tor nodes. The computers are called nodes on the Tor network, and with each layer, with each computer, or each node, there is a layer of encryption added or removed to obfuscate your location, perhaps the next hop, is disclosed, the next hop in the Tor network, and also masking or encrypting the internet traffic itself, which is illustrated as white inside. This is helpful because if we take hypothetically somebody, well, it's not hypothetical, realistically, somebody surveilling your internet connection, they will see that you are using the Tor network. They'll see multiple layers of encryption as well. If they surveil it from your computer, if they surveil at this end of the of the connection, they will only see there's one layer of encryption, which is illustrated in white, which is the HTTPS. And hopefully it is, if the website you're looking at has HTTPS in the browser, in the URL bar, then you have SSL TLS encryption, and which website you are looking at isn't obscured, isn't hidden, the data itself, which perhaps your personal information, which you're maybe entering into the website, is. However, I should warn that your browser behavior is only as anonymous as your behavior itself. So if you are using the Tor network and you say, "Hi, my name is Bob," then obviously you've disclosed your name to the website itself. But of course, you haven't revealed your location, and there are other aspects to it. So just be aware that you're only as private or anonymous as your behavior. Okay, moving on. Here is another explanation of the Tor network. So this is your activity without Tor, and this is your activity with Tor. So as I said before, I'm afraid we don't have so much time to go into this in full detail, but this is a very helpful diagram. It's also quite complicated, but that's because there is so much information on it, because it takes hypothetical surveillance at different levels of you here accessing the website here. So this is somebody perhaps surveilling your home network, which you're accessing through Wi-Fi. This is potential people surveilling the internet service provider, which is obliged to carry, to store data on you, who can, in this instance with Tor, can see that you're using Tor but cannot see perhaps the website which you're accessing. So lawyers, system administrators who administrate the internet service provider, the police, and then the wider the main backbones of the internet itself, surveilled by NSA for the UK, or I think the USA is actually surveilled by GCHQ, because they have this agreement between each other to this way to legally break the law, or legally breach human rights. So the UK is surveilled by the US, and the US is surveilled by the UK surveillance authorities, so that it's not a surveillance authority within their own jurisdiction which is surveilling their own citizens. It's the same effect, really. It's but anyway. So here, okay. So and then so let's look at go back to without Tor. So you can see that basically more information about the website you're accessing, the user password, the data location is more visible, because there's less encryption. But please do go back or come back and have a look at this slide. This is there's a lot of information in that, and just hypothesize about the first Tor relay, the second Tor relay, the third Tor relay, what each step of the trafficked data, what information about that data is possible, and think about that in terms of your use of the Tor network, please. So download the Tor browser, get it from torproject.org. Other ways to get it as well. Browser is regularly maintained. The Tor browser is regularly maintained. Vulnerabilities do come out in the wild, then they are patched. This is an ongoing process, which is with all maintained software. So please do keep it updated. It's automatic. A little icon appears in your top right hand corner saying like, oh, I can't remember exactly what it says, but an update is available, and it just downloads it automatically, and then it says, please restart your browser to update. So it's very easy, but just keep an eye on that, and please, just keep updated. Mobile Tor, not so much to talk about that, except that you probably shouldn't use it, I'm afraid. It is available on Android, but mobile phone devices make it very difficult for full privacy to be granted. Yes, it provides an element of censorship prevention, but in terms of anonymity and privacy, it's not really to be relied upon, I'm afraid. Help is available here. Please check it out. Download these slides, check them out. Don't use Tor for online banking. PayPal, eBay, Amazon, these sorts of sites. Basically, many websites block Tor or block your account, your bank account in this instance, if you access them through Tor. Your bank account might ring alarm bells and say, I think your bank account's been hacked. Somebody was accessing it through Tor. So will PayPal. In these scenarios, we suggest you use a VPN, a virtual private network, which we'll come into next, actually. Some websites, such as eBay, Amazon, I think you can browse and window shop and find your item, which does actually counter. I guess that's corporate surveillance, kind of outside of the scope of this workshop, but reduces the amount of data that they collect on you. But don't log in through them because you might get your account blocked or suspended, I should say. So VPNs. I love this picture of spanners. Virtual private networks. So basically what you are doing is you're paying somebody to use their computer. So if we go back to how Tor really works, so this in effect, the Tor network, you're using 3 people's computers to access a website. With a VPN, you are perhaps just paying one, and also Tor is free. VPN you're paying, or perhaps it's free, just using one person's computer to look at the website. So when the website looks back and looks to see who's using their website, they will see that computer. Or with a Tor network, they'll look back and they see somebody in the Tor, a Tor network, an exit relay in this instance. So going back to VPNs. So they do cost money. You're in effect paying somebody to use their computer. So it's around £45 a year. However, they do often allow you to use one account with around 10 devices. So perhaps share the cost of VPN provider between some friends. So £4.50 a year perhaps is not so much. Hopefully, trusted friends, I should add. However, you are using somebody else's computer, so you need to be able to trust that person. Some recommended providers are there's basically a review of the providers on privacytools.io, and you might want to consider, for example, which jurisdiction that organization is in, so that if there is a judicial request for data logs from that VPN service provider, is the VPN service provider going to sell you out and just give your IP address away? Do they take logs? I believe the 3 listed recommended providers do not keep logs of your, for example, IP address, and I should hope not your actual data itself. And PIA, private internet access, there has been, I think, more than one court ruling for them to provide data. In each instance, they basically stated that they don't keep logs. That data isn't kept. So it has in effect been battle tested, and the service is still running. Moorved VPN, iVPN, I'm not sure. I haven't listed Proton. Proton VPN are another provider, but there was a recent controversy about, I believe, a climate activist in France, but that was to do with their email. There was a court request for their email for the data on one of their email users to be given, and it was actually granted. Yeah, I won't go into that too much, I'm afraid, because I don't have so much time. But yeah, have a read up on that. Okay, so yeah, Tails is next. It's next in this workshop. I have a lot of slides on Tails. I'm afraid to admit. It's basically an explanation of yeah, how to use Tails. It's all on the website. There's some really good documentation. Please check out tails.baum.org. Tails, that's a blank screen. Tails is a live operating system. You can start on any computer. So you put it on a USB stick. It's an operating system that runs from a USB stick, or kind of even better from a DVD. And you boot the computer from the USB stick. Yeah, its aims are preserving your privacy, anonymity. It helps. It runs all of your traffic unless specified otherwise. It runs all of your traffic through the Tor anonymization network. So it helps you use the internet anonymously, circumvent censorship. It leaves no trace on the computer you're using unless you ask it explicitly. That's why it's called the amnesiac incognito live system, because it forgets everything. So this adds an element of security to perhaps if a virus is put on the operating system, you reboot your computer, that wherever that virus is saved, in theory it should then be, it shouldn't persist. It shouldn't. Yeah, your operating system is sort of reset, so to speak, each time you reboot into Tails. And yes, of course, it uses state-of-the-art cryptographic tools to encrypt your files, emails, and instant messaging. It's all free and open source software. Yeah, check out the website. So yeah, these slides are a step-to-step tutorial which you can follow to have a quick overview of Tails, understand how it works and how it could fit your needs. I should add that setting up VPN over Tails, as far as I'm aware, I mean, they don't have support for it, I'll just say that. So yeah, Tails is essentially for, in using the internet, everything is run over Tor. So probably the most difficult thing of using Tails is just the initial bit of actually getting started, starting Tails, getting your computer to boot from the device, the USB device or the DVD. In Windows, yeah, on Windows you need to restart your computer. You need to try to escape the Windows operating system. I mean that in more ways than one. Basically you need to hold press Shift when you choose restart, and then it should propose a menu when you start your computer. And in this menu, which is in the diagram below, the screenshot below, you can select to reboot from your USB device, which actually your Tails device is inserted at the time. If your computer is already turned off, you might just be able to hit the Shift key, or I mean, the thing is, different laptops have different options for being able to enter into BIOS, to be able to, or UEFI, to be able to access tell your computer from boot from USB. Yeah, maybe have a Google of your laptop model and how to tell that specific laptop model or a PC to boot from USB or DVD. You may need to hit F1, F2, escape, delete as you start up, and then that might bring you, or F12, or that might bring you up an option to boot from USB. The options differ, but just find out how to do it on your computer, and yeah, you'll be winning basically. If you're on a Mac, the options, the ability comes from pressing Alt and Option key when the system starts. So you need to shut down the computer, and then when it starts, press the Alt or the Option key when the system starts. And I think the computer usually emits a sound. Then you should see a screen like this one. Select your USB stick. Yeah, have a look at these slides and read them in more detail, please. And then hopefully you should see a screen like this one, which is the grub, the startup screen of Tails. And this, there's another version of this, but yeah, I really hope you are able to find this screen of joy on your own computer and yeah, take control of your data. And then you will be presented with the welcome screen, which is yeah, in the picture here. And this gives you various startup options as explained in the documentation. Yeah, have a read up on that. So I'm going to skim through the next slides because there's quite a lot of information basically about all the different things that you can do. So yeah, and hopefully, yeah, you just need to click Start Tails, and then this is the desktop basically. It's very user friendly. As soon as you're in, even the starter menu, it's very easy, very intuitive. But again, there's documentation. Yeah, so just explore. Have a look at the menu, which is illustrated on the right. It's got a file browser which you can find in places. Yeah, as I mentioned before, you can just right click on an image, for example, and then or a file and wipe or encrypt the file or share it via onion share across the Tor network, remove its metadata. If it's a photo, yeah, it's all quite easy. Yeah, there's your quick settings system menu. If I click into Wi-Fi, you've got Tor browser here. You can view the 3 different nodes that you're going through. So in this case, it was Germany, Canada, and Switzerland. Your data is being bounced through the Tor network. Yeah, please have a proper read of these slides. I will stop at the persistence wizard because this is very helpful. This is the option to have a partition on your USB stick, which is encrypted to actually save your files on, and also some of the settings, for example, your Wi-Fi username and password, and multiple other settings. Yeah, have a look at the Setup Tails Persistent Volume Wizard. It's all self-explanatory when you start it, and yeah, configure it. And this is the ability to yeah, save files. To tell your Tails instance to save certain files, and then when you reboot your computer, you will be prompted for the encrypted persistent storage password to unlock that, to then load the settings and be able to access the files. You still have the option to be able to start Tails without the persistence, even after you have the encrypted partition, but yeah, this is an extra option. Please have a read. Yeah, of course, the other way to store documents is just put another USB stick in your computer and save documents on that. Yeah. Yeah, as I explained earlier on, here's a more thorough explanation of how to clean the metadata, remove the metadata from your images. Just right-clicking. And yeah, more explanation of that basically. And also, yeah, please spread the word. Make copies of Tails. That there's a Tails installer. Put another USB stick in and make a copy of Tails. And again, it can be cloned and cloned and cloned, so that yeah, lots of people have Tails operating systems. Hopefully. If you need more support with using Tails, there's not just documentation, but there's online support through email, through talk, chat, yeah, forums at the bottom. And this brings us on to part 3. Sorry, smartphone security. So yeah, smartphone security is a little bit of a contradiction, but hey. So yeah, there's no such thing as perfect security, and I'm afraid you can't go into too much detail about smartphones, but we can give you some guiding principles, basically, good practices. I guess first things first is just encrypt your phone. Often device encryption isn't enabled by default. I think in Android it's not. iOS also has device encryption. Have a look in your system settings, enable it, make sure your phone is fully charged, ideally plugged into a power source, it might take a little while and 1 or 2 restarts for your device to be encrypted. So give yourself time and battery power to be able to do this. Consider backing up your contacts, only having your contacts on your phone which you're likely to use, so that if that device is compromised in some way or another, not all of your contacts are gleaned from your device by the offending authority. Regularly remove your photos and any other data off of your phone onto external USB stick or computer, or even a cloud, depending upon who that cloud provider is. It's a good practice in general for keeping backups, but also in case your phone is confiscated. One issue about backing up your data. One important thing about it is police in the UK have been known to raid and then to confiscate devices, not just as a means of surveillance, but as a means of causing organizational disruption. So that if people's phones are taken away, they don't have the means to contact. But maybe if you could just go and buy another phone or borrow a phone. If you have those contacts, then you can then contact those people and ask for help. And perhaps there's also data, organizational data, which is kept on your device. If it's backed up, then that you can continue to organize even after your devices are confiscated. Some general good advice is just please always keep your software updated. So that's the ROM, that's the operating system, so to speak, as well as the apps themselves. Feeling like a bit of a parrot, please use a password manager. KeyPass has its own Android app for Android phones. This is general good practice. There are some alternatives to just plain old vanilla Android, which provide sometimes more security, sometimes less. Have a read up on them. I hope these are, some of these are quite old, might be outdated. Lineage OS provides the option to not have GApps, Google Apps on your phone, to remove that corporate surveillance off of your phone, because I think data which is taken by corporations can also be intercepted by the state. So if your device basically collects less data on you, then it just means that less data. There's less data to be taken from you. There are risks to reinstalling an operating system on your phone. You can make your phone unusable in unlikely instances. Please follow the instructions closely. Be aware of the risks. Have a look at them. Obviously it's not for everybody, reinstalling an operating system on your phone. I might just add PinePhone, which is actually a phone itself rather than a ROM or an operating system. It has numerous Linux ROMs available for it, and what I particularly like is just this little feature of having 6 hardware kill switches, so you can disable the camera. You can actually remove the battery, which is more than I can say for a lot of more recent smartphones, and turn off, for example, the modem device, the cameras, the microphone. Having a microphone on a switch is so basic, but actually such a massive improvement in terms of actual privacy on your smartphone. So some apps. I'm sorry, it's I don't, to be honest, know so much about apps available for iOS, but I can speak for Android apps. Firstly, I would recommend just getting F-Droid, so visit fdroid.org. It's basically the free and open source software equivalent of the Google Play Store. It's a app repository, a way of getting lots of different apps available. It doesn't have as many apps as Google Play Store, but all the apps are, by virtue of them being free and open source, they're perhaps they are more reliable, trustworthy in the sense that they're more transparent. There is lots of apps on there by guardianproject.info. Check out their website as well, or just check out their apps on F-Droid once you've installed. So this is an app which you install on your phone, I should say, which then installs other apps. Just a brief summary of some of the apps available on F-Droid. Osman, so perhaps an alternative to Google Maps. Not as good, I would hesitate to say. However, you can download maps onto your phone. They are perhaps 1 gigabyte. Sometimes for UK 1.5 gigs, I think. It does, but then you have the ability to, I guess, use SatNav, to have SatNav without your location being tracked, because I should say that GPS is it's passive in the sense that it's only listening to radio transmissions. The way that GPS works is it listens to the transmissions of satellites, GPS satellites, and then does a mathematical calculation and works out where it is based upon that, as well as, I should add, cell tower information to help quicken the process in that mathematical calculation it does. So it's not actually saying where is my location. So my location is here, my location is London. It's actually Google Maps, in the instance of Google Maps, which discloses your location and says says where it is. I would add, in order to request, in the instance of Google Maps, in order to request the map of London, or the specific area of London where you are, perhaps. But Osmand, on the other hand, doesn't. You can download the map of the whole area, whole country, and then use SatNav to be able to navigate or use GPS to be able to navigate in that area, roads, and it has route planning, like cycling and stuff. So it's a good bit of software. Maybe takes a little while to get to grips with, but it's relatively intuitive. Perhaps also very useful in situations where there is no mobile data, parts of the world where there's no mobile data, and you perhaps want to be navigating there. So different use case scenarios. Haven is a very good app. Haven is hopefully available on F-Droid, but also Google Play Store, provided by Guardian Project, great organisation. Here is the app, and basically Haven is for people who need a way to protect their personal spaces. It's in effect setting up your own CCTV with a phone in your personal space and possessions, and without compromising your own privacy. It's so it leverages on-device sensors to provide monitoring and protection of physical spaces. So perhaps if you're staying in a hotel and you want to make sure that no one's gone into your room while you're away, you set up your spare phone. I should say you do need a spare phone for this. With the data connection and then it will basically use a camera, and if it senses any movement in the room, it can send notifications of that movement. It can send recordings or audio of what's happening in the room. I should just have a look there. The same with video. It can use it as a CCTV and take photos, I believe. And keep a log basically of a sensor log of what's happening. So a great app for protecting personal space. Circular, recently another app has come out which I believe is for similar or the same purposes. Ripple is an app which is it's a trigger app to protect your privacy. So when in panic situations. So perhaps if you are liable to be raided by a security organisation, FOSS, and it can trigger different responses. So, for example, you can program it to send a message. It can wipe all of the data from certain sensitive apps. So you can program it accordingly. Obscuracam. This is great for perhaps demonstration situations where you can take photos and it would have an automatic face detection, and then you can program it to basically blur or blotch out people's faces if you want to take a photo of but not reveal location. Sorry, the identity of people in that photo. Two firewall apps available, AFWall and NetGuard. Firewalls are just ways to improve the security of your phone. Basically to have more control over which apps on your phone are allowed to send data, and also perhaps blocking incoming connection attempts to a certain extent. I'd add AFL. You need root permissions, so you need your phone to be rooted. NetGuard works in place of a VPN app, so it means that you can't, I believe, have also you can't configure Android to run a VPN connection. NetGuard would act instead. I wonder if it's possible to have a third-party privacy VPN app. So take, for example, PA's or Morvad's VPN app that you need to install, and then have that running as well as NetGuard. I'm not sure, to be honest. But yeah, so the pros and cons to each of those. And yeah, check out all of the apps at Guardian Project. So yeah, Guardian Project has quite a few different apps. Oh, Circular is also provided by Guardian Project. See, even I'm learning stuff. And Ripple is provided by them. Yeah, Tor browser is also. Yeah, and so is ObscuraCam. So yeah, please do check out Guardian Project. So next, I will talk about encrypted messenger apps. I guess, yeah, firstly, some of the better ones, some of the recommended ones are Signal Messenger, Element, Contalk, Conversations, Wire. I haven't heard from Wire for a while, actually. I'm not so sure, but Silence is for encrypting your SMS messages. K9 Mail, use along with Open Keychain to encrypt your mail. Tutanota is a third-party app for encrypting mail using that specific Tutanota email service provider. Telegram. Okay, so I'll talk about some of the cons, I guess, of Telegram, WhatsApp, for example, and then I'll go into explaining some of these apps in more detail. I mean, Telegram its strength is that it has many interesting communities. Encryption is Panzerbrand. Yeah, the encryption, I mean, I'm not sure if it's pants, so to speak, but basically it's not one of the more well-known battle-tested forms of encryption. And since there are so many forms, well, there are some main forms of encryption, free and open source encryption, which anybody is free to use and which are relatively straightforward to integrate into a messaging app. I just beg to question, why have they just gone on their own road and gone their own route and used their own way of implementing encryption? Why not just use one of the ones which are already battle tested? So I just wouldn't trust the encryption. I mean, I think I use encryption when I use Telegram, but there's not really that much point. It doesn't provide that much extra privacy, but it does. I guess another strong point is that just in the third point, that with Telegram you don't have to provide a phone number to identify yourself as an ID, as your username, so to speak, with Telegram. Whereas, for example, in Signal Messenger you do, and often with telephone numbers in this day and age are actually in effect our identification, the way in which we are identified, de-anonymized, who we are, where we are. I guess, on that vein, actually, I mean, there is the option with Signal Messenger to get a SIM card. I guess just buy one for £1. I think EE, actually, you can just register the SIM card in the UK, that is, and register a phone number, I should say. Use that to register an instance of Signal, receive the text message, and then in effect, I think you would have to lock Signal Messenger by entering this verification number, and then after that, just chuck away the SIM card and use a different SIM. So that means your phone number isn't linked. I mean, your location, when and where you registered the SIM card, and the IMEI number, so the hardware device which you use to register the SIM card, would be logged by your mobile phone service provider. And in the sense that when you then use your hypothetical main SIM card with the other phone number, your main phone number, you would be using the same phone, so that through the IMEI number it would be linked. That at least you do have a little bit of detachment from your phone number, between your main phone number and your Signal Messenger number. So it just gives I mean, it's not ideal, it's not perfect encryption privacy, but it's just an extra element of I mean, perhaps even personal privacy, in that you can contact people on Signal and they won't be able to ring you up on any other app except Signal, which you can block them on. So yeah, go back to WhatsApp. I mean, they say they use end-to-end encryption, but the app itself isn't free and open source software, it's proprietary. So I wouldn't really trust the encryption. And then, I mean, even if it was good encryption, then you are also giving your metadata to then help fund Facebook. Zuckerberg, who then go and take your data and help prop up dangerously fascist regimes, such as that in Myanmar. Where was it? I mean, Brexit, Trump, Cambridge Analytica basically helped get Modi into power, Bolsonaro. Anyway, I won't go too much into that, but please avoid giving your data and thus your money to fund Zuckerberg, a very dangerous individual. So as I was talking about before, pros of the following apps is that you don't have to provide a phone number for identification. As I mentioned, Telegram, also Element, Contalk, Conversations, Wire, K9 Mails. I mean, due to know their email addresses, their email apps, I should say. K9 Mail can be used for any email service providers. Tutanota is an app specific for the Tutanota's services. I would like to add, I guess, some of the downsides of Signal is, yes, the phone number, but also, I mean, I see certain organisations using group chats with say like 100 people in that group chat, and yes, it's end-to-end encryption between those 100 phones, but you just get one of those phones which is either physically compromised, perhaps the person's been arrested, or in technologically compromised, maybe that phone's been hacked, and then that phone and then that malicious hacker then has access to the whole group and all of their end-to-end encryption. So an end-to-end encrypted group chat is only as secure as those 100 phones hypothetically that are in that chat. So please be aware of that when in these very large group chats. Element, I'm very sad that they dropped their old name Riot, but maybe they're trying to appeal to a more mainstream audience. Is a decentralized messaging platform, which is also an attempt at bridging lots of different messaging platforms and have one interface, so to speak, for all of those platforms. There are bridges for Signal Messenger. Actually, I'm not so up to date with all the different bridges, but it's an attempt to bring all of those platforms onto one through one app. Contalk, you can use your phone number. It's not so well known, but it uses end-to-end encryption. You can use an email address or a phone number for that. Conversation uses a very old, protocol called XMPP, but then it uses the latest end-to-end encryption, so you can use PGP, OMIMO. I think there's another end-to-end encryption that you can use. You need to find your own. I think the Conversations service actually provide their own, I think, for 6 months trial of it. But then you can find your own XMPP server to use, which is quite nice because you can actually have your own server, or you can use one which is perhaps on the Tor network. So that's provides some nice options for conversations. This is, I think, very helpful for an ideal for perhaps chatting to strangers or chatting to someone who you've just met, perhaps on the street. Although not many people that I meet on the street, well, not enough people use Conversations or XMPP, but hey, perhaps Signal Messenger is more an ideal app for somebody, closer friends, just in, hypothesizing about that. Some privacy gizmos, webcam covers, they're great. Put them on your cameras, on your laptop, your webcam, your selfie cam. I mean, they can tend to sort of rub off on your phone, I'm afraid to say. But have a search online, eBay, whatever, for webcam covers. Buy some. I think they're about £2 each or something. I mean, you can just put a sticker on your camera, but then it's, if you actually want to use your selfie cam or whatever, then you've got to peel that sticker off. Maybe it leaves a bit of gum on your on your lens, you know. So webcam covers they have a little sliding, a little slot which is made of plastic or metal, and you can just, it's like a little shutter. You can slide it open and slide it shut afterwards, and they look pretty smart. They're quite nice. They're obviously different sizes for different devices, but yeah, I strongly recommend you get some. They're great, and buy a load, share them with your mates. Another gizmo is Faraday pouches, which you can also get online. I think you can order them in China, about £3 each or something. They basically block all radiation, transmission and receiving of your phone's reception, GPS, whatever. So your phone is not able to send or receive data. So this then masks your phone's location, and that's your location. I would add that it does not stop your sensors working on your phone. So let's hypothetically say that your phone has some malware on it thanks to GCHQ, and it's recording you. You put it in a Faraday pouch, that phone is still recording you. Often the most efficient way for such malware to operate is to record for large sections of time, store that data, and then at opportune time send that data off to wherever it's stored. So perhaps it stores that data whilst it's in the Faraday pouch, and then when you take it out of the Faraday pouch, then it will send all that data. So I'm just giving examples of how this gizmo doesn't protect you from sensor. But if you want to cycle around somewhere and you don't want your location to be tracked all the time, then put it in a Faraday pouch, and this is good for that. Also, just check that it's actually working. Put it in the Faraday pouch. Ring your phone from your spare phone or your mate's phone. Does your phone ring or not? Or if it does ring, obviously the Faraday pouch isn't working. And if the opposite happens, if it doesn't ring, then maybe it is working. So please do test them. And so here's some ideas to have perhaps an imperfect but slightly expensive model to hide your IMEI number. So IMEI number is it's the hardware identification in your phone's modem. So your modem on your phone has an identification number, and this is transmitted by your phone to the phone network which you're connecting to. Often when you initially connect to your phone network, and this is, as well as your SIM card. Is it SIM IMEI? I can't remember the acronym for your SIM card's identification number, but your SIM also has a unique identification number, which will be tied to your phone number itself, and that identifies you rather than your phone, although of course the two are linked. So an idea to basically hide your IMEI number, so you can change your SIM, every day if you want, but you're still using the same phone, so your IMEI number is still identifiable. So, but a way to circumvent that is to have two smartphones, one with your personal data on, but you only keep this in airplane mode, and then just turn the Wi-Fi on. Ideally use VPN or Tor as well, but hey, and then with that Wi-Fi connect to your other phone. So let's call them phone 1 and phone 2. Phone 1 is in airplane mode, has no SIM card in. Phone 2 has a SIM card in. This is your burner phone, so to speak. You then you turn on your phone, hotspot your mobile data from this, and then connect to it using phone 1. This phone then is just a bit more disposable. and it makes it easier to dispose of and then get another phone, because you don't have to transfer all your contacts, all your data to and from, set up your apps all again, So it just provides a model for being able to change your phone a bit easier, and also have some compartmentalization, I think, between your one phone which is connected to the network and one phone and the other phone which has your personal data on. And compartmentalization is it's just a nice method for slightly better security when talking about device security. So another idea, perhaps sitting sort of half jokingly, to take back control of your device. This is a bit more extreme. So basically, search YouTube for a teardown video for your device. And I mean, sadly, this is often not possible, or they make it very difficult to open your phone nowadays. But yeah, have a look at evaluate whether removing the ribbon cables or the cables for your cameras, your microphone, your GSM modem, so your modem, and so on, is within your skill set ability, and it doesn't look like you're just going to break your phone. You might end up breaking your phone. It's quite possible you will end up breaking your phone if you do this. But basically, you are limiting your phone's sensor capability. Maybe you want a phone that you just want to disable the microphone, but be aware that obviously you won't be able to use the microphone later. You might want to remove the camera completely. I mean, you could just put a sticker over your cameras, to be honest, though. Maybe if you're going back to the previous model on phone 1, you might actually, if it's possible, to remove the antenna cable for your modem on the device. But this is perhaps going a little bit. It depends what your threat model is, to be honest. But I just like to mention these ideas, throw them out there, and then people can use them if they want to. I would like to add as well, in terms of phones, we've gone really quickly over the phone section of this of any defensive security workshop, to be honest. There's so much more that could be said. I would like to point you towards Electronic Freedom Foundation's website, the SSD, Surveillance Self-Defense section of their website. In here, have a look at attending a protest. This is a very helpful guide. It's mostly actually about phones, because your phones are the device which people predominantly take on protests, and it provides lots of very helpful advice, quite in depth. It's US centric in terms of the legal advice, but a lot of it applies to the UK as well, and many other jurisdictions. Things to do, and it breaks it down into things to do before the protest, behaviour, things to do during the protest, and then after the protest. For example, if your device is confiscated, it's very lots of really good advice on that. I mean, some of the things I've said already enable full disk encryption in your device. I haven't said remove fingerprint unlock and Face ID. Install Signal Messenger. It's good bit of advice. Back up your data. Buy a prepaid disposable phone, or burner phones as they're sometimes called, as I've mentioned. Not everybody has the ability to buy a disposable phone for every single demonstration. Perhaps that's actually kind of quite unethical, considering the conflict elements used in the GSM modem. But this might be more, it might be more practicable using this method of hiding your IMEI number with your, if you're buying a second-hand phone and then trading it in for like parts exchanging it. I wonder if there's some places you might know which can do that. Got some options and some advice, I should say, for dressing for anonymity and safety. Not phone related, but very, very good advice. During the protest, taking the ability to take photos and videos without unlocking your device. This is quite helpful, because then someone swipes your phone, then it's unlocked if because you're just trying to take a photo or video, and then they have access to perhaps your data. Be mindful of other protesters. So Obscuracam is a good app for that, but also try to just not take photos of people doing incriminating things, please. Unless, obviously they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Scrub metadata, we talked lots about that already. Other really good advice: public transit considerations, enable airplane mode, although a Faraday pouch might be even an extra belt and braces approach to that. If you're arrested, perhaps have a look at another website for talks about threat modeling, which is good, but yeah, in terms of legal advice about your phone being seized, some applicable, some not to UK jurisdiction. If your device is confiscated, what's the device that the UK were recently found to be using? Let's have a look, actually. I believe it's a Celebrite device they use to take all the data, exfiltrate all the data off your phone if you're in police custody. It downloads all the data. Produced by Israeli defense company, actually. But I have just realised that I'm very much over time, so I'm afraid I've got to wrap up this workshop. Many thanks to Wikimedia for the image content, Tor Project for their slides on Tor, Jeb at riseup.net for the for the text from the slides. And there's lots of further resources. Please don't stop here. Please read about all of the things which take your interest in my workshop. And if you have any comments, criticisms, or feedback, you can contact me at sweatpittech@riseup.net. Please, I welcome any comments, criticisms, feedback, whatever. Hopefully we're chatting away in the chat room right now. Thanks very much for listening to the workshop.